in the shadowy corridors of Valdoria's ancient Crescent Palace, where secrets have been buried for centuries beneath marble floors and golden tapestries, a single night shift guard stumbled upon something that would shake the very foundations of the kingdom. What began as routine patrol rounds through the royal archives became the discovery that would expose a web of deception reaching into the highest circles of power. When Guard Captain Elena Morrison witnessed an unauthorized figure slipping through restricted vault doors at midnight, she had no idea she was about to uncover a conspiracy that threatened not just the crown, but the safety of every citizen in the realm. The question wasn't just who had access to the kingdom's most guarded secrets, it was why they needed them, and what they planned to do with information that could topple governments, destroy alliances, and rewrite history itself. In a world where loyalty is currency, and betrayal carries the ultimate price, Elena's discovery would force everyone to choose sides in a game where the stakes couldn't be higher. The autumn rain hammered against the tall windows of Crescent Palace as Captain Elena Morrison made her way through the dimly lit corridors on what should have been a routine security check. The grandfather clock in the main hall had just chimed midnight when she noticed something that made her pause mid-step. A thin sliver of light was seeping from beneath the heavy oak doors of the restricted royal archives, a section of the palace that should have been sealed tight until morning. Elena had been serving as a palace guard for 12 years, working her way up from a basic security position to captain of the night watch. She knew every stone, every shadow, every protocol that governed the ancient seat of power in the kingdom of Valdoria. The archives were strictly off-limits after sunset, accessible only to the royal librarian, select members of the royal family, and the head of palace security during daylight hours. No exceptions had ever been made to this rule, not even during times of crisis. Her hand instinctively moved to the communication device clipped to her belt, but she hesitated. False alarms were career killers in palace security. She needed to be absolutely certain before raising an alert that would wake half the palace staff and potentially embarrass high-ranking officials. Instead, she approached the archive doors with the practiced silence that had made her one of the most trusted guards in the royal household. The archives occupied an entire wing of the palace's eastern section, housing documents that spanned 8 centuries of Valdorian history, treaties with neighboring kingdoms, military strategies, financial records, and diplomatic correspondence were all stored within these walls. But deeper in the archive vaults lay the truly sensitive material, documents that could compromise national security, reveal state secrets, and expose information that foreign powers would kill to obtain. As Elena drew closer to the doors, she could hear the faint sound of papers rustling, and what seemed like someone moving carefully through the stacks. Her training kicked in immediately. She activated the silent recording function on her patrol device, ensuring that whatever she discovered would be properly documented. The palace had learned long ago that evidence was everything when dealing with potential security breaches. She tested the door handle and found it unlocked, which sent a chill down her spine. The archives used an advanced digital lock system that kept detailed logs of every entry and exit. Someone with high-level access codes had either opened these doors or the security system had been compromised. Neither possibility was acceptable. Elena pushed the door open just wide enough to slip inside, using the shadows cast by towering bookshelves to conceal her presence. The main archive hall stretched out before her, lined with wooden cases containing thousands of bound volumes and document boxes. The source of the light appeared to be coming from the restricted vault section at the far end of the hall, where the most sensitive materials were stored behind additional security barriers. As she moved deeper into the archives, Elena's mind raced through the possibilities. Could this be a foreign intelligence operative attempting to steal state secrets? A corrupt palace official selling information to the highest bidder, or perhaps someone within the royal family itself accessing materials they shouldn't have? Each scenario carried different implications and required different responses. The sound of footsteps on the stone floor ahead made her freeze behind a large display case containing historical artifacts. Someone was definitely in the restricted section, moving with purpose rather than the careful browsing of a casual researcher. Elena activated her night vision scope and peered around the corner of the case. What she saw made her blood run cold. A figure dressed in dark clothing was systematically photographing documents with a small, professional-grade camera. The person wore gloves and moved with the efficiency of someone who knew exactly what they were looking for. This wasn't a casual breach of protocol. It was a coordinated intelligence operation taking place in the heart of the royal palace. Elena's training told her to retreat immediately and call for backup, but something about the scene kept her frozen in place. The intruder's movements seemed familiar somehow, as if she had seen this person before. The way they carried themselves, the careful attention to detail, the obvious familiarity with the archive layout. This wasn't some outside operative stumbling around in the dark. The figure moved to a different section of the vault, one that Elena knew contained diplomatic correspondence from the past 5 years. These documents included sensitive communications with allied nations, intelligence reports from Valdoria's foreign service, and strategic plans that were classified at the highest levels. If this information fell into the wrong hands, it could compromise ongoing negotiations, expose intelligence assets, and potentially put lives at risk. Elena made a decision that would change everything. Instead of immediately calling for backup, she continued to observe, documenting everything she could about the intruder's activities. Her patrol device was recording both video and audio, creating an evidence trail that would be crucial regardless of how this situation unfolded. She needed to know exactly what documents were being photographed, and whether the intruder was working alone or as part of a larger operation. The intruder spent nearly 20 minutes in the vault, systematically working through specific files with the precision of someone following a predetermined list. They ignored vast sections of historical material that would fascinate most researchers, focusing exclusively on contemporary documents that dealt with current political and military matters. This selectivity confirmed Elena's suspicion that she was witnessing a professional intelligence operation. As the figure prepared to leave the vault, Elena faced a critical decision. She could continue observing and try to identify the intruder, risking discovery but potentially gathering crucial intelligence about who was behind this breach. Alternatively, she could retreat now and ensure that backup arrived before the intruder escaped, though this might mean losing the chance to identify them. The intruder suddenly stopped and turned toward the section where Elena was hiding. For a terrifying moment, she thought she had been discovered. Her heart pounded as she pressed herself against the display case, hardly daring to breathe. The figure stood motionless for what felt like an eternity, apparently listening for any sign that they were not alone in the archives. After several tense seconds, the intruder seemed satisfied that the coast was clear and began moving toward the exit. Elena realized this was her only chance to get a clear view of the person's face. She adjusted her position slightly, using her night vision scope to track the figure's movement through the main archive hall. As the intruder passed under one of the emergency lighting fixtures, Elena finally got a clear look at their face. What she saw shocked her to her core and changed everything she thought she knew about this situation. The person systematically photographing Valdoria's most sensitive state secrets wasn't a foreign operative or a corrupted palace official. It was Lady Catherine Blackwood, the trusted personal secretary to Queen Isabella herself. Elena's mind reeled as she tried to process this revelation. Lady Catherine had served the royal family for over 15 years, had been vetted at the highest levels, and was considered one of the most loyal members of the inner circle. She had access to virtually every aspect of the royal family's private and official business. If she was stealing state secrets, the implications were staggering. The guard captain watched in stunned silence as Lady Catherine carefully locked the archive doors behind her and disappeared down the corridor toward the royal residential wing. Elena remained hidden for several more minutes, trying to piece together what she had just witnessed and determine her next course of action. The evidence on her recording device was damning, but Elena knew that accusing someone of Lady Catherine's standing would require absolute proof and careful handling. A wrong move could end her career, but failing to act could compromise national security. She needed to think carefully about who to trust with this information and how to proceed without alerting Lady Catherine that she had been discovered. As Elena finally made her way back to the security office, she realized that this was just the beginning. Someone with Lady Catherine's access and position didn't steal state secrets for personal gain. They did it because they were working for someone else. The question was who, and what they planned to do with Valdoria's most carefully guarded information. The rain continued to pound against the palace windows as Elena locked her recording device in the secure evidence safe and began planning her next move. She had stumbled onto what appeared to be a high-level espionage operation, and every decision from this point forward could determine the fate of the kingdom itself. Dawn was still hours away, but Elena knew that sleep would be impossible. She had witnessed something that could shake the very foundations of the royal government, and the weight of that knowledge pressed down on her like a physical burden. The loyal guard who had started her shift, expecting nothing more eventful than checking locked doors, now found herself at the center of a conspiracy that reached into the highest levels of power. The only question now was what to do about it, and who she could trust with information that could either save the kingdom or destroy it completely. Elena Morrison spent the remaining hours of her shift in the security office, staring at the locked evidence safe while her mind churned through the implications of what she had witnessed. The recording device containing proof of Lady Catherine's unauthorized archive access felt like it was burning a hole through the metal walls of the safe. Every few minutes, she found herself questioning whether she had really seen what she thought she had seen. But the crystal-clear images captured by her night vision scope left no room for doubt. As dawn began to filter through the office windows, Elena faced a dilemma that would define not only her career, but potentially the future of the kingdom itself. Palace protocol dictated that security breaches be reported immediately to the head of palace security, Commander Marcus Rothwell. But Lady Catherine's position as Queen Isabella's personal secretary meant she had daily access to Commander Rothwell himself. If Lady Catherine was part of a larger conspiracy, there was no guarantee that reporting through normal channels wouldn't simply alert the very people Elena was trying to expose. The changing of the guard occurred precisely at 7 in the morning, as it had every day for the past century. Elena watched her replacement take over the security desk while she struggled with the weight of her secret. Captain James Sullivan, her longtime colleague and friend, noticed her troubled expression immediately. "Rough night?" James asked, settling into the desk chair with his usual morning coffee. He had worked alongside Elena for 8 years and could read her moods better than most people. Elena hesitated for a moment, considering whether to confide in James. His loyalty was unquestionable, but involving him could put his career at risk as well. "Just some unusual patrol observations," she said carefully. "Nothing that can't wait for the day shift to handle." James studied her face with the practiced eye of someone trained to detect deception. "Elena, I've known you long enough to recognize when something's eating at you. If there's a security concern, we need to address it properly." Before Elena could respond, the office door opened, and Commander Rothwell himself walked in. Marcus Rothwell was a decorated veteran who had served the royal family for 23 years, rising through the ranks based on merit and unwavering loyalty. His presence immediately filled the small office, and both captains stood at attention. "Captain Morrison," Rothwell said, his voice carrying its usual tone of professional authority, "I need to speak with you privately about last night's patrol reports." "Captain Sullivan, please continue with your morning briefing in the main security center." James shot Elena a concerned look before gathering his materials and leaving the office. Elena's heart raced as she wondered whether Rothwell's unexpected visit was routine or if somehow word of her discovery had already leaked. The commander's expression revealed nothing, maintaining the neutral professionalism that had served him well throughout his career. "Sir," Elena began, but Rothwell held up a hand to stop her. "Before you say anything, Captain, I want you to know that Palace Security has been monitoring some unusual activity in recent weeks," Rothwell said, closing the office door behind him. "We've detected subtle anomalies in archive access logs, minor discrepancies in document filing systems, and communication patterns that suggest someone may be conducting unauthorized research into sensitive materials." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. If Palace Security was already investigating unusual archive activity, her discovery of Lady Catherine could be the missing piece of a larger puzzle. But it could also mean she was walking into a trap. "What kind of anomalies, sir?" she asked carefully. Rothwell moved to the window and gazed out at the palace grounds, where morning staff were beginning their daily routines. "The kind that suggests someone with high-level access is systematically reviewing materials they shouldn't be accessing. The kind that could indicate either incompetence or deliberate intelligence gathering." The commander turned back to face Elena, and she noticed something in his eyes that she had never seen before: uncertainty. Marcus Rothwell had always been the embodiment of confidence and control, but the man standing before her now seemed burdened by doubts and suspicions that went beyond routine security concerns. "Captain Morrison, I'm going to ask you a direct question, and I need you to understand that your answer could have significant consequences for everyone involved," Rothwell continued. During your patrol last night, did you observe anything unusual in the archive sections? Elena realized this was the moment of truth. She could file a routine report that mentioned nothing unusual, protecting herself from potential retaliation, but allowing a possible espionage operation to continue. Or she could trust Commander Rothwell with the evidence she had gathered, knowing that once she opened this door, there would be no going back. "Sir, I need to retrieve something from the evidence safe," she said, making her decision. Elena opened the safe and removed her patrol recording device, placing it on the desk between herself and Rothwell. "I witnessed an unauthorized individual accessing the restricted archive vault at approximately 12:30 this morning. The entire incident was recorded." Rothwell's expression sharpened immediately. "Show me." Elena activated the playback function, and they both watched the clear footage of Lady Catherine systematically photographing documents in the restricted vault. The commander's face remained impassive throughout the recording, but Elena noticed his hands clench slightly as the full scope of the security breach became apparent. "Have you shared this information with anyone else?" Rothwell asked once the recording ended. "No, sir. I secured the evidence immediately and have been waiting for guidance on proper protocol." Rothwell stood in silence for several long moments, apparently weighing options that Elena couldn't even imagine. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a gravity that made her realize just how serious this situation had become. "Captain Morrison, what you've discovered goes far beyond a simple security breach. We've been quietly investigating suspected intelligence leaks for the past 3 months, and Lady Catherine Blackwood has been one of our primary suspects. Your recording provides the first concrete evidence of her unauthorized activities." Elena felt her legs go weak. She had stumbled into the middle of an ongoing counterintelligence operation that apparently reached into the highest levels of the royal household. "Sir, what are my orders?" "For now, you're to continue your normal duties but report directly to me on any unusual observations. Do not discuss this matter with anyone else, including Captain Sullivan. We cannot afford to have word of this investigation leak before we fully understand the scope of Lady Catherine's activities and who she might be working with." Rothwell paused, studying Elena's face carefully. "I need to know that I can count on your absolute discretion and loyalty in this matter. What we're dealing with here could potentially threaten the stability of the crown itself." Elena straightened her shoulders, drawing on the sense of duty that had guided her throughout her career. "You have my complete loyalty, sir. What do you need me to do?" "Continue your regular patrol schedule, but I'm temporarily reassigning you to include additional archive monitoring during your shifts. If Lady Catherine returns, do not intervene directly. Observe, document, and report to me immediately. We need to build a comprehensive case before we take any action that might alert her to our investigation." The commander moved toward the door, then turned back with one final instruction that sent a chill through Elena's entire body. "Captain Morrison, be extremely careful who you trust over the coming days. If Lady Catherine is indeed conducting espionage operations from within the royal household, she's not working alone. There are others involved, and we don't yet know how far this conspiracy reaches. Anyone could be compromised, including people you've worked with for years." After Rothwell left the office, Elena sat alone with the weight of her new assignment settling heavily on her shoulders. She was now part of a counterintelligence operation that could expose traitors within the royal household itself. The routine palace security job she had performed for 12 years had suddenly transformed into something far more dangerous and complex. Elena's mind immediately went to her colleagues and friends within the palace guard, Captain Sullivan, who had been asking concerned questions about her troubled mood, Sergeant Davis, who had access to archive scheduling systems, Lieutenant Harper, who worked closely with the royal family's personal staff. Any of them could be involved in whatever conspiracy Lady Catherine was part of. The rest of her morning was spent in a fog of paranoia and uncertainty. Every conversation with fellow guards seemed potentially suspicious. Every routine interaction with palace staff could be an attempt to gauge what she knew. Elena realized that her discovery in the archives had fundamentally changed not just her job, but her entire relationship with the people and place she had served loyally for over a decade. As she prepared to leave the palace at the end of her extended shift, Elena made a decision that would prove crucial in the days ahead. Instead of going directly home to her apartment in the city, She took a detour through Valdoria's old quarter, using techniques she had learned in security training to determine whether she was being followed. The narrow streets and crowded markets of the old quarter provided perfect cover for counter-surveillance, and Elena spent an hour carefully checking for any signs that someone was tracking her movements. When she was satisfied that she was alone, she made her way to a small cafe where she could sit quietly and process everything that had happened. Elena ordered coffee and found a corner table where she could observe the street while organizing her thoughts. The revelation that palace security had already been investigating Lady Catherine suggested that the espionage operation was larger and more sophisticated than she had initially realized. But it also raised troubling questions about why the investigation hadn't yet identified the unauthorized archive access that she had witnessed. As she sat in the cafe, Elena began to consider possibilities that made her deeply uncomfortable. What if Commander Rothwell's claim about an ongoing investigation was itself part of a cover-up? What if her discovery had forced him to acknowledge something he had been trying to conceal? What if the conspiracy reached even higher into the palace security apparatus than she had imagined? These questions plagued her as she finally made her way home to her modest apartment overlooking the city's main river. Ayla had always prided herself on her ability to follow orders and trust in the chain of command, but the events of the past day had shaken her faith in institutions she had served without question for over a decade. That evening, as Elena tried to rest before her next shift, she received a phone call that changed everything once again. The voice on the other end was unfamiliar, speaking in the careful tones of someone accustomed to dealing with sensitive information. "Captain Morrison, this is Deputy Director Sarah Chen from the Royal Intelligence Service. We need to meet immediately to discuss your recent observations regarding archive security. There are aspects of this situation that Commander Rothwell may not have shared with you." Elena felt her blood run cold. The Royal Intelligence Service was Valdoria's external intelligence agency, responsible for operations beyond the kingdom's borders. Their involvement suggested that whatever Lady Catherine was doing had implications far beyond palace security. "How did you get my number?" Elena asked, though she already suspected the answer. "Captain Morrison, we've been monitoring this situation for some time. Your discovery last night has provided crucial evidence for an operation that goes far beyond what you've been told. I strongly recommend that you meet with me before your next shift begins." Elena realized that she was now caught between multiple competing authorities, each claiming to have her best interests and the kingdom's security at heart. But she had learned enough about intelligence operations to know that the truth was often the first casualty when different agencies began working at cross purposes. "Where do you want to meet?" she asked, knowing that her simple night patrol discovery had just drawn her into a game where the stakes were higher than anything she had ever imagined. Deputy Director Sarah Chen had chosen the meeting location carefully, a small bookshop in Valdoria's University District that stayed open late and attracted the kind of academic clientele that minded their own business. Elena arrived 15 minutes early, using the time to browse the history section while keeping watch on the entrance. Her 12 years of palace security training had taught her to always assess her surroundings, and tonight, that vigilance felt more crucial than ever. Chen arrived precisely on time, appearing as an unremarkable woman in her 40s, with graying hair and the quiet confidence of someone accustomed to operating in shadows. She selected a biography of ancient Valdorian kings from a nearby shelf and approached Elena with the practiced casualness of a professional intelligence operative. "Captain Morrison," Chen said quietly, opening the book as if examining its contents. "Thank you for agreeing to meet. What I'm about to tell you will fundamentally change your understanding of the situation you've stumbled into." Elena continued browsing the shelves, mimicking Chen's casual behavior, while her mind raced with anticipation and dread. "Deputy Director, I need to understand why the Royal Intelligence Service is involved in what appears to be a palace security matter." "Because it stopped being just a palace security matter 3 months ago, when our foreign assets began reporting that classified Valdorian intelligence was being sold on the international black market," Chen replied, turning a page without actually reading it. Documents that could only have come from the highest levels of our government were showing up in the hands of foreign intelligence services. Elena felt her stomach drop. The implications of Chen's revelation were staggering. Lady Catherine's unauthorized archive access wasn't just about stealing information. It was about selling state secrets to foreign powers. "The documents you witnessed being photographed last night," Chen continued, contain intelligence assessments about our neighboring kingdom's military capabilities, details about ongoing diplomatic negotiations, and information about Valdorian intelligence assets operating abroad. In the wrong hands, this information could compromise ongoing operations and put lives at risk. Chen closed the book and moved to a different section, with Elena following at a discreet distance. We've been conducting a parallel investigation to Palace Security's internal review, and we've identified evidence that suggests the espionage operation involves multiple individuals within the royal household. Lady Catherine may be the one physically accessing documents, but she's not acting alone. Elena's mind immediately went to Commander Rothwell and his claim about monitoring unusual activity. Deputy Director Commander Rothwell told me that Palace Security has been investigating this matter for months. Are our investigations coordinated? Chen's expression darkened slightly. That's where things become complicated, Captain Morrison. We have reason to believe that the espionage operation includes individuals within the Palace Security apparatus itself. Commander Rothwell's investigation may be legitimate, or it may be an attempt to control information flow and protect co-conspirators. The possibility that her own commander might be involved in the conspiracy sent a chill through Elena's entire body. She had reported directly to Rothwell, provided him with evidence, and received assignments that could potentially compromise the very investigation she thought she was supporting. What evidence do you have? Elena asked, trying to keep her voice steady despite the growing sense that everything she thought she knew was collapsing around her. Chen pulled a slim folder from inside her jacket and handed it to Elena. Financial records showing suspicious transactions in accounts linked to several palace staff members, including a recent deposit of 50,000 Valders into an account belonging to Commander Rothwell's wife. Communication intercepts suggesting coordination between Lady Catherine and unknown parties outside the palace. And most disturbing, evidence that sensitive documents were accessed during times when Rothwell himself was responsible for archive security. Elena opened the folder and quickly scanned the documents, each piece of evidence building a case that painted her trusted commander as potentially complicit in the espionage operation. Bank statements, communication logs, and access records all pointed toward a conspiracy that reached directly into the heart of palace security. If Rothwell is involved, Elena said slowly, then my report to him this morning has already compromised your investigation. Possibly, Chen agreed, but it may also have provided us with an opportunity. If Rothwell is part of the conspiracy, he now knows that someone has evidence of Lady Catherine's activities. That pressure might force the conspirators to accelerate their timeline or make mistakes that expose the full scope of their operation. Chen moved toward the bookshop's rear exit, gesturing for Elena to follow. Captain Morrison, I need to ask you to do something that goes against every instinct you have as a palace guard. I need you to continue working with Commander Rothwell while secretly reporting to me. You'll be operating as a double agent within your own security apparatus. Elena felt the weight of the request settle on her shoulders like a physical burden. Everything she had believed about duty, loyalty, and chain of command was being challenged by circumstances that demanded she choose between competing definitions of service to the crown. What exactly are you asking me to do? Continue following Rothwell's instructions regarding Lady Catherine, but document everything and report back to me. We need to know what the palace security investigation is really focused on, whether they're trying to expose the conspiracy or cover it up. Most importantly, we need to identify all the participants before we make any arrests. Chen handed Elena a secure communication device disguised as a standard smartphone. This will allow you to contact me directly without going through palace systems that might be monitored. Use it sparingly and only from secure locations outside the palace grounds. As they prepared to leave the bookshop separately, Chen delivered one final warning that made Elena realize just how dangerous her situation had become. Captain Morrison, you need to understand that everyone you work with is now potentially suspect. Lady Catherine and Commander Rothwell may just be the beginning. This conspiracy could include anyone from fellow guards to members of the royal family itself. Elena made her way back to her apartment through the quiet city streets, her mind struggling to process the full implications of her conversation with Chen. She was now caught between competing intelligence operations, unsure who she could trust and unclear about who was really working in the kingdom's best interests. The next morning brought Elena's most challenging shift yet. She arrived at the palace knowing that every interaction with Commander Rothwell could potentially expose her double role, while every conversation with fellow guards might reveal additional conspirators. The weight of her secret mission made even routine security tasks feel dangerous and complex. Commander Rothwell summoned her to his office within an hour of her arrival, his expression more serious than she had ever seen it. "Captain Morrison, we've received intelligence that suggests the espionage operation may be more extensive than we initially believed. I'm assigning you to expanded surveillance duties that will require you to monitor not just Lady Catherine, but several other members of the royal household staff." Elena accepted the assignment while carefully noting every detail for her report to Chen. Rothwell provided her with a list of surveillance targets that included the palace communications director, 2 senior administrative assistants, and, surprisingly, Deputy Minister Harrison from the Foreign Affairs Office. "Sir?" Elena asked carefully. "What evidence has led us to suspect these particular individuals?" Rothwell's hesitation was almost imperceptible, but Elena's training helped her catch the momentary pause that suggested he was choosing his words carefully. Various intelligence sources have identified patterns of behavior and communication that warrant closer observation. I need you to document their movements, note any unusual activities, and report back to me immediately if you observe anything suspicious. As Elena left Rothwell's office with her new assignment, she realized that she was now being asked to spy on people who might be innocent victims of a false investigation designed to protect the real conspirators. The moral complexity of her situation was becoming overwhelming. Her first surveillance target was Deputy Minister Harrison, whose office was located in the palace's administrative wing. Elena positioned herself where she could observe Harrison's activities while appearing to conduct routine security patrols. What she observed over the next several hours surprised her. Harrison seemed genuinely focused on his legitimate duties, reviewing diplomatic correspondence and meeting with foreign embassy representatives. His behavior showed none of the secretive caution she would expect from someone involved in espionage activities. If anything, Harrison appeared to be conducting himself with the transparency of someone who had nothing to hide. Elena's observation of the communications director yielded similar results. The woman spent her day coordinating media events, managing official announcements, and handling routine correspondence with palace protocol staff. Her activities seemed entirely consistent with her official responsibilities. By the end of her shift, Elena had begun to suspect that Rothwell's surveillance assignments might be designed to keep her busy with innocent targets while the real conspirators continued their activities elsewhere. The possibility that she was being deliberately misdirected made her question everything about the palace security investigation. That evening, Elena used Chen's secure communication device to request an emergency meeting. They arranged to meet at a different location, a small restaurant in the city's financial district where business conversations were common and wouldn't attract attention. "Deputy Director," Elena said once they were seated at a corner table, "I believe Commander Rothwell is deliberately directing my surveillance toward innocent parties while protecting the real conspirators." Chen listened carefully as Elena described her observations of the surveillance targets and her growing suspicions about Rothwell's true motives. When Elena finished her report, Chen's expression was grim but not surprised. "Captain Morrison, your observations confirm what our independent investigation has been suggesting. We believe that Rothwell is not just aware of the espionage operation, he's actively coordinating it. The surveillance assignments he's giving you are designed to create false evidence against innocent parties while allowing the real spies to continue their work." Chen opened a leather portfolio and removed several photographs that made Elena's blood run cold. The images showed Commander Rothwell meeting with known foreign intelligence operatives in locations outside Valdoria's borders. The timestamps on the photos indicated that these meetings had taken place during Rothwell's supposed vacation periods over the past year. "We have evidence that Rothwell has been receiving payments from at least 2 foreign intelligence services in exchange for access to Valdorian state secrets," Chen continued. "Lady Catherine is essentially his agent within the royal household, accessing documents that he then arranges to sell to foreign buyers." Elena stared at the photographs, trying to reconcile the images of her trusted commander engaging in treason with the man who had earned her respect and loyalty over years of service. "How long has this been going on?" "We believe the operation began approximately 18 months ago. coinciding with a period when Valdoria was negotiating sensitive trade agreements with neighboring kingdoms. The information being sold has already compromised several diplomatic initiatives and may have contributed to the failure of important alliance negotiations. Chen leaned forward, her voice taking on an urgent tone. Captain Morrison, we're approaching a critical juncture. Our intelligence suggests that Rothwell and his conspirators are planning one final major document theft before disappearing with their accumulated profits. We need to stop them before they can complete this operation and flee the country. Elena realized that her role in this drama was about to become far more dangerous and complex. What do you need me to do? We need you to help us catch them in the act while ensuring that we can arrest all the participants simultaneously. This will require you to continue working with Rothwell while secretly coordinating with our agents to set up a trap that will expose the entire conspiracy. Chen handed Elena a more detailed briefing document. Study this tonight, but destroy it before your next shift. Tomorrow, you'll begin the most important mission of your career, helping to save your kingdom from betrayal by the very people sworn to protect it. As Elena left the restaurant with Chen's words echoing in her mind, she realized that her simple discovery of Lady Catherine in the archives had evolved into something far beyond anything she could have imagined. She was now at the center of an operation that would either expose a major espionage ring or destroy her career and possibly her life. Elena Morrison barely slept that night, spending the dark hours studying Chen's briefing materials and trying to prepare herself for what promised to be the most dangerous assignment of her career. The documents revealed the scope of a conspiracy that reached far beyond what she had initially discovered, involving not just Lady Catherine and Commander Rothwell, but a network of corrupted officials who had been systematically looting Valdoria's most sensitive secrets for over a year. According to Royal Intelligence Service analysis, the espionage ring had already sold information that compromised 3 ongoing diplomatic negotiations, exposed 2 foreign intelligence assets working for Valdoria, and revealed military deployment plans that had forced the kingdom to completely restructure its border security arrangements. The financial damage alone was estimated in the millions of Valdors, but the strategic implications threatened Valdoria's position in an increasingly unstable region. The briefing materials also revealed Chen's plan for exposing the conspiracy, which required Elena to play a dangerous game of deception that could easily result in her death if discovered. She would need to convince Rothwell that she suspected nothing, while secretly gathering evidence that would allow intelligence agents to arrest all the conspirators simultaneously. Elena arrived at the palace the next morning carrying the weight of her secret mission like a physical burden. Every interaction with fellow guards felt dangerous, every routine security procedure seemed potentially compromised, and the familiar halls of Crescent Palace had transformed into a maze of potential threats and hidden enemies. Commander Rothwell summoned her to his office within minutes of her arrival, his demeanor suggesting urgency that immediately put Elena on high alert. Captain Morrison, we've received intelligence indicating that the espionage operation may be accelerating. I need you to implement enhanced surveillance protocols immediately. Elena noted the careful way Rothwell avoided providing specifics about the source of this intelligence, another indication that his investigation was designed to control rather than expose the conspiracy. What are my specific instructions, sir? I want you to focus your surveillance on Deputy Minister Harrison today. We have reason to believe he may be planning to access sensitive diplomatic files this afternoon. If you observe any unauthorized activity, document it but do not intervene. We need to build an airtight case before taking any action. Rothwell's assignment was clearly designed to keep Elena occupied with an innocent target while the real espionage operation continued elsewhere. According to Chen's intelligence, the conspirators were planning their final major document theft for today, but it would be conducted by Lady Catherine, while Elena was watching Harrison. Elena accepted the assignment while mentally preparing for the complex deception she would need to maintain. Sir, should I coordinate with any other security personnel on this surveillance? No, Rothwell replied quickly, confirming Elena's suspicion that he wanted to keep her isolated from other guards who might not be part of the conspiracy. This is a sensitive operation that requires absolute discretion. Report only to me. As Elena left Rothwell's office, she noticed Lady Catherine emerging from the Queen's private chambers with a manila folder tucked under her arm. The timing was too convenient to be coincidental. While Elena was assigned to watch an innocent man, The real spy was being given access to whatever documents the conspirators planned to steal. Elena made her way to the administrative wing where Deputy Minister Harrison's office was located, but instead of establishing a direct surveillance position, she used her knowledge of the palace layout to position herself where she could monitor both Harrison and the route Lady Catherine would need to take to reach the archives. Harrison spent the morning in routine meetings with foreign ministry staff, displaying none of the secretive behavior Elena would expect from someone planning to steal classified documents. His activities were completely transparent, conducted in full view of multiple witnesses, and focused entirely on legitimate diplomatic business. Meanwhile, Elena observed Lady Catherine making several trips between the royal residential wing and the administrative areas, each time carrying different folders and documents. The pattern suggested that she was assembling materials for a major information transfer, exactly what Chen's intelligence had predicted. Around noon, Elena noticed something that confirmed her worst suspicions about the scope of the conspiracy. Sergeant Williams, one of the palace's most trusted guards, approached Lady Catherine in a corridor and engaged in a brief, whispered conversation before handing her what appeared to be a security access card. Elena's heart sank as she realized that the corruption within palace security was even more extensive than Chen had indicated. Sergeant Williams had served alongside Elena for 8 years and had always been regarded as one of the most reliable members of the Guard force. His involvement in the conspiracy meant that virtually anyone could be compromised. The sight of Williams actively assisting Lady Catherine forced Elena to reconsider everything she thought she knew about her colleagues and friends within the palace guard. If someone as trusted as Williams was involved, how many others might be part of the conspiracy? How long had she been working alongside traitors without realizing it? Elena used Chen's secure communication device to send a coded message reporting Williams' involvement and Lady Catherine's apparent preparation for a major document theft. The response came back within minutes, instructing Elena to continue her surveillance while additional intelligence agents moved into position around the palace. The afternoon brought the culmination of events that Elena had been dreading since her discovery in the archives 3 nights earlier. At approximately 2 o'clock, Lady Catherine made her way toward the restricted archives section, but instead of attempting to avoid detection as she had during Elena's initial observation, she moved with the confidence of someone who believed she had complete security cover. Elena realized that Rothwell's assignment to watch Harrison was designed not just to keep her occupied, but to ensure that no legitimate security personnel would witness Lady Catherine's theft of the documents. The conspiracy was sophisticated enough to coordinate Elena's absence from the archives during the exact time window when the theft was planned. Using techniques she had learned during her security training, Elena abandoned her assigned surveillance of Harrison and carefully made her way toward the archives. She needed to document Lady Catherine's activities while avoiding detection by Williams or any other compromised guards who might be providing security for the operation. Elena reached the archive entrance just as Lady Catherine was unlocking the doors with the access card Williams had provided. The site confirmed that this was a coordinated operation involving multiple corrupted palace staff members working together to steal state secrets. Elena positioned herself where she could observe the archive entrance while remaining hidden from casual observation. Her recording device was activated and ready to document whatever theft was about to take place, but she knew that this time she might not escape detection if other conspirators were involved in providing security. Lady Catherine spent nearly an hour in the restricted vault, far longer than during her previous unauthorized visit. The extended time suggested that she was photographing a large volume of documents, possibly the comprehensive intelligence theft that Chen had warned Elena to expect. During her surveillance, Elena noticed something that made her blood run cold. Commander Rothwell himself appeared in the corridor outside the archives, apparently standing guard to ensure that Lady Catherine's activities weren't interrupted by legitimate security personnel. Her trusted commander was personally overseeing the theft of state secrets from the kingdom he had sworn to protect. Elena's recording device captured Rothwell's participation in the conspiracy, providing the definitive evidence that Chen's Royal Intelligence Service would need to prosecute the entire espionage ring. But Elena also realized that her own position was becoming increasingly dangerous as more conspirators gathered in the area. When Lady Catherine finally emerged from the archives, she was carrying a large briefcase that presumably contained copies of whatever documents she had photographed. Elena watched as Rothwell and Williams escorted Lady Catherine toward the palace's service exits, clearly intending to smuggle the stolen materials off the premises immediately. Elena faced a critical decision. She could continue observing and documenting the conspiracy's activities, but doing so would mean allowing the stolen documents to leave the palace. Alternatively, she could attempt to intervene directly, but that would expose her surveillance and potentially put her life at risk. Her decision was made for her when Sergeant Davis, another supposedly trustworthy guard, appeared behind her with his weapon drawn. "Captain Morrison," Davis said quietly, "Commander Rothwell would like to speak with you privately." Elena realized that her surveillance had been detected and that the conspirators were now moving to neutralize what they perceived as a threat to their operation. Her mind raced through possible escape routes while she tried to determine whether Davis was fully aware of the conspiracy or simply following orders from a superior he trusted. "Of course," Elena replied, trying to keep her voice steady while assessing her tactical situation. "Is there a security matter that requires my immediate attention?" Davis gestured toward a side corridor that would take them away from the main palace areas and toward the more isolated service sections. "The commander is waiting in Security Office C." He said it was urgent. Elena knew that Security Office C was located in a basement area that was rarely used and would provide perfect cover for whatever the conspirators planned to do with her. She also knew that refusing to accompany Davis would immediately confirm their suspicions and escalate the danger she was facing. As they walked through the corridors toward the basement offices, Elena discreetly activated the emergency beacon on Chen's communication device, sending a signal that would alert Royal Intelligence Service agents that she was in immediate danger. Whether help would arrive in time was now beyond her control. Elena's mind was working frantically to develop a plan for surviving whatever confrontation awaited her in Security Office C. She had her service weapon, but using it against fellow guards would be difficult regardless of their corruption. She had combat training, but Davis was equally trained and would be expecting resistance. Most importantly, Elena realized that she was now carrying the evidence that could expose the entire conspiracy and save Valdoria from further betrayal. The recording device contained proof of the espionage ring's activities, but it would be useless if she didn't survive to deliver it to Chen and her intelligence team. As they descended the stairs toward the basement level, Elena made a silent promise to herself and to the kingdom she had served faithfully for 12 years. Whatever happened in Security Office C, she would find a way to ensure that the evidence reached the people who could act on it. The corridor ahead was dimly lit and empty. Exactly the kind of isolated location where conspirators could deal with problems without witnesses or interruptions. Elena's hand moved subtly toward her weapon as she prepared for what might be the final confrontation of her career. Behind her, Davis maintained the professional demeanor of a guard following routine orders, but Elena could sense the tension in his movements that suggested he was prepared for violence if necessary. The next few minutes would determine whether her accidental discovery of Lady Catherine in the archives would ultimately save the kingdom or cost Elena her life. The door to Security Office C stood open ahead, revealing nothing but darkness beyond the threshold. Elena took a deep breath and stepped forward, knowing that everything she had worked for and believed in was now at stake in whatever waited for her in that small, isolated room. Security Office C was smaller than Elena had remembered, with concrete walls that would muffle any sounds and a single overhead bulb that cast harsh shadows across the room. Commander Rothwell stood behind a metal desk, his normally professional demeanor replaced by the cold calculation of someone who had abandoned any pretense of loyalty to the crown. "Captain Morrison," Rothwell said as Davis closed the door behind them, "I believe you've been conducting unauthorized surveillance activities that compromise ongoing security operations." Elena maintained her composure despite knowing that her life hung in the balance. "Sir, I've been following the surveillance assignments you provided. My activities have been entirely within the scope of my authorized duties." Rothwell's smile was devoid of warmth or humor. "We both know that's not true. You've been monitoring Lady Catherine's movements, documenting archive access, and communicating with outside parties about palace security matters. Those actions constitute a serious breach of protocol that requires immediate attention." Elena realized that the conspirators had been monitoring her activities more carefully than she had suspected. They knew about her contact with Chen, her surveillance of Lady Catherine, and possibly even the evidence she had been gathering. The only question was how much they knew and whether her emergency signal had reached the Royal Intelligence Service. "Commander," Elena said carefully, "I think there may be some misunderstanding about my activities. If you have concerns about my performance, I'm happy to address them through proper channels." Davis moved to a position that blocked Elena's access to the door while keeping his hand near his weapon. The tactical arrangement confirmed that this wasn't intended to be a routine disciplinary conversation. "Captain Morrison," Rothwell continued, "you've become a liability that threatens the security of everyone involved in this operation. I had hoped that assigning you to monitor innocent parties would keep you occupied while we completed our work, but your persistent interference has forced us to take more direct action." Elena's training told her to remain calm and look for opportunities, but the confirmation that Rothwell was openly acknowledging his involvement in espionage sent adrenaline coursing through her system. "Sir, I need to understand what operation you're referring to." Rothwell laughed, a sound that echoed strangely in the small concrete room. "The operation that has already transferred enough classified information to foreign buyers to ensure comfortable retirement for everyone involved. The operation that your accidental discovery threatened to expose before we could complete our final transactions." Elena felt a chill as she realized that the conspiracy was even more extensive than Chen's intelligence had indicated. How many people are involved in this? Enough to ensure that Valdoria's secrets have been comprehensively documented and sold to parties who appreciate their value more than our naive royal family, Rothwell replied. "Guards, administrators, even members of the royal household staff who understand that loyalty to an outdated monarchy is less important than financial security." Davis shifted positions slightly, and Elena noticed that he seemed uncomfortable with Rothwell's open discussion of treason. The sergeant's hesitation suggested that he might not be fully committed to the conspiracy, which could provide Elena with an opportunity if she could find a way to exploit it. "Sergeant Davis," Elena said, turning to address him directly, "how long have you been aware of this operation?" Davis glanced nervously at Rothwell before responding. "Captain Morrison, I'm following orders from my commanding officer. I don't have detailed knowledge of operational matters beyond my assigned duties." Elena recognized the tone of someone who was following orders without fully understanding their implications. Davis had been recruited to provide security for the operation, but he might not realize the full scope of the treason he was enabling. "Sergeant," Elena continued, "do you understand that what Commander Rothwell is describing constitutes treason against the crown? The penalty for selling state secrets to foreign powers is life imprisonment or execution." Rothwell's expression darkened as he realized what Elena was trying to do. "Sergeant Davis, Captain Morrison is attempting to manipulate you with legal technicalities. Our operation has been carefully planned to minimize personal risk while maximizing financial benefit for all participants." Elena pressed her advantage. "Sergeant, I've been documenting this entire conversation on my patrol recording device. When Royal Intelligence Service agents review this evidence, everyone in this room will be charged with treason unless they cooperate with the investigation." Davis's hand moved away from his weapon as doubt began to show on his face. "Commander, is that true? Are we really committing treason?" Rothwell's careful control began to crack as he realized that his operation was unraveling. "Sergeant, Captain Morrison is lying about recording devices and intelligence agencies. We need to focus on completing our mission and ensuring operational security." Elena sensed that Davis was wavering and decided to take a calculated risk. "Sergeant Davis, I can offer you immunity from prosecution if you help me arrest Commander Rothwell and stop this espionage operation. The Royal Intelligence Service is already aware of the conspiracy and is prepared to make deals with people who cooperate." Rothwell reached for his weapon, apparently deciding that the situation had deteriorated beyond the point where further deception was useful. "Sergeant Davis, arrest Captain Morrison immediately. She's compromised our operation and must be detained until we can complete our final document transfers." Elena realized that the moment of truth had arrived. Davis would either follow Rothwell's orders and enable the completion of the espionage operation, or he would choose to side with Elena and help stop the theft of state secrets. Everything depended on his decision in the next few seconds. Davis drew his weapon, but instead of pointing it at Elena, he aimed it at Commander Rothwell. "Sir, I need you to put your hands on the desk and step away from your weapon. I think Captain Morrison is telling the truth about this being treason." Rothwell's face showed genuine surprise for the first time since Elena had entered the room. Sergeant, you're making a serious mistake. Our operation has support at the highest levels of government. Interfering now will destroy your career and possibly your life. Elena used Rothwell's momentary distraction to move closer to Davis, positioning herself where she could support him if Rothwell decided to resist arrest. Sergeant, you're making the right choice. Help me secure Commander Rothwell, and we can stop this conspiracy before any more damage is done to the kingdom. The sound of footsteps in the corridor outside made everyone freeze. Elena hoped it was Chen's Royal Intelligence Service agents responding to her emergency signal, but it could equally be additional conspirators coming to ensure that Elena didn't escape with evidence of their activities. The door burst open and Deputy Director Chen entered with 2 agents, weapons drawn and tactical gear indicating they had been prepared for armed resistance. Elena felt a wave of relief wash over her as she realized that help had finally arrived. Commander Rothwell, Chen said in a voice that carried absolute authority. You're under arrest for treason, espionage, and conspiracy to sell state secrets to foreign powers. Sergeant Davis, please secure your weapon and step away from both suspects. Rothwell's shoulders slumped as he realized that his carefully planned operation had been completely exposed. Deputy Director Chen, I think you'll find that this situation is more complex than Captain Morrison has suggested. There are political considerations that go beyond simple law enforcement. Chen's expression remained coldly professional. Commander, we have complete documentation of your financial transactions with foreign intelligence services, recordings of your coordination with Lady Catherine Blackwood, and evidence of systematic theft of classified documents over the past 18 months. The complexity you're referring to will be sorted out by prosecutors and judges. Elena felt the tension drain from her body as she realized that the immediate danger had passed. Deputy Director Sergeant Davis assisted in Commander Rothwell's arrest. He should be considered for immunity in exchange for his cooperation. Chen nodded to one of her agents, who moved to search Rothwell while the other agent secured Davis for questioning. Captain Morrison, your recording devices and surveillance reports have provided crucial evidence for this operation. The kingdom owes you a significant debt of gratitude. As Rothwell was led away in handcuffs, Elena finally allowed herself to process the full scope of what she had experienced over the past 4 days. Her accidental discovery of Lady Catherine in the archives had uncovered a conspiracy that reached into the highest levels of palace security and could have compromised Valdoria's national security for years to come. Deputy Director, Elena asked as the immediate crisis wound down. How extensive was this conspiracy? How many people were involved in the espionage operation? Chen consulted a folder that one of her agents provided. Our investigation has identified 17 palace staff members who were actively participating in the espionage ring, including guards, administrators, and household staff. Lady Catherine and Commander Rothwell were the primary coordinators, but the operation required extensive logistical support from corrupted personnel throughout the palace. Elena felt sick as she realized how many of her colleagues and friends had betrayed their oaths of service. What happens to the palace security force now? Complete restructuring under new leadership, Chen replied. Everyone will be investigated, retrained, and subjected to enhanced security clearance procedures. The Royal Intelligence Service will be taking a much more active role in palace security going forward. As Elena made her way back to the main palace areas, she reflected on how dramatically her life had changed since that routine patrol 4 nights earlier. She had started as a simple guard following standard procedures, and had become a key figure in exposing a major espionage operation. The next morning brought news that would reshape Valdoria's government and security apparatus. Crown Prince William, who had been quietly monitoring the investigation, announced a comprehensive review of palace security and the establishment of new protocols designed to prevent future breaches. The betrayal we have uncovered strikes at the very heart of our nation's security, Prince William declared in a televised address to the kingdom. Captain Elena Morrison's courage and dedication have saved Valdoria from a conspiracy that could have compromised our sovereignty and endangered our citizens. Elena watched the prince's announcement from her apartment, still processing the surreal experience of being publicly praised for what had started as an accidental discovery. The simple guard who had noticed an unusual light in the archives had become a national hero, though she knew that the real victory belonged to everyone who had chosen loyalty to the kingdom over personal gain. The Royal Intelligence Service offered Elena a position that would have dramatically increased her salary and status, but she chose instead to remain with the reformed Palace Guard under new leadership. Her experience had taught her that the most important security work happened in the quiet corners and forgotten corridors, where ordinary guards maintained vigilance against extraordinary threats. 6 months later, Elena stood in the same archive corridor where she had first observed Lady Catherine's unauthorized access. The security procedures had been completely overhauled. The personnel had been thoroughly vetted, and new technology ensured that every access was monitored and recorded. As she completed her patrol rounds, Elena reflected on the lesson she had learned about the price of betrayal and the value of simple, honest service to the crown. Her accidental discovery had exposed a conspiracy that reached into the highest levels of power, but it had also demonstrated that ordinary people doing their jobs with integrity could protect their nation from those who would sell its secrets for personal gain. The archives were secure, the palace was protected, and Valdoria's secrets remained safe in the hands of people who understood that some things were worth more than money. Elena Morrison, the guard who had stumbled onto a conspiracy in the middle of a routine night shift, had helped ensure that the kingdom she served would continue to trust in the loyalty of those sworn to protect it. In the end, the most sophisticated espionage operation was no match for a dedicated guard who noticed when something was wrong and had the courage to act on her convictions. The light that had drawn Elena's attention on that rainy night had illuminated a darkness that threatened the very foundations of the kingdom, and her willingness to investigate had ensured that Valdoria's secrets remained where they belonged.